Hello, and welcome to the Sunday message from Living Word International Christian Church. We are a home for people of all nations and all generations. I'm Pastor Mika Yrjölä, and we are so blessed to share the love of Jesus Christ with you today. Let's join our Sunday message already in progress.
10 weeks ago, Pastor Mika and Pastor Rami started to walk us through the Hall of Fame, the Heroes of Faith, in Hebrews 11. They challenged us, they encouraged us. Go through Hebrews 11, because that's what we're going to be doing for the next couple of weeks. We want to talk about these amazing men and women of God that he chose to put in Hebrews 11. I remember in one of our staff meetings, I said, man, Pastor Rami, this is beginning of June, I can't wait to hear you preach about Rahab. You are going to have such a mighty word. I can't wait to hear it. There's anticipation in my heart. 2 weeks later, she went to Finland. We thought she'd be back by now. So I remember having a conversation with Pastor Mika just a few weeks ago. I can't wait to hear you preach about Rahab. He looked at me in our meeting room upstairs and he said, wouldn't it be great if you preached about Rahab? I said, no, I'm not ready. He said, you know I'm not going to ask you to do anything that you're not ready for. But God already knew I was ready. So Pastor Mika, thank you. So Pastor Mika, unbeknownst to him, started to feel this localized pain. And he went into the hospital. And our staff began to intercede. Because if you've walked with this church, you've walked with 16819, you know that the enemy thinks he has victory over this place. But we are in the center of the DMV area, and he has no power, no control. And honestly, it's getting a little old because he's doing the same thing over and over and over again. So please believe that our faith is not shaken or rattled. It's being activated. The last 10 weeks from this pulpit, we've been talking about faith. We've been singing about faith. We've been preaching about faith. We've been walking through our own faith battles. So don't you think that the same way that when the enemy approached God about Job, that he was coming for us? Here's the cool part that I learned about Job. The enemy didn't say, what about Job? The Lord said, what about my servant Job? We may not want the long suffering that's attached to that, but I want when the Father looks at me, he says, what about Promise? What about Willis? What about Bob? What about Krystal-Joy? Well, that's what he did on Monday. And I cried and I said no, and this week has been so difficult. I've taken so many COVID tests because the allergies of the summer are terrible. I'm good. I'm here. I'm well. But the enemy just tried to take us out one by one. Pew, pew, pew. I have a 9-year-old son, so I do that often. Pew, pew, pew. Just tried to take us out. There were so many bigger and better things that he had for us. And this is what he said to me. The faith of Rahab the prostitute. The labels of your past do not dictate the future of your legacy. Let me say that again, because we're going to bookend it. The faith of Rahab the prostitute, the labels of your past do not dictate the future of your legacy. So obviously when I got the call from Pastor Rami and I went into a bit of a panic, I called my co-teacher in Christ. If you have had the privilege to be a part of our wonderful 8-week Bible studies, Grace Kassar, Professor Grace in California, and I have, again, kicking and screaming through our very own Pastor Neil at the time, said, I want you guys to start to do some teaching. I said, oh, okay, well, Grace can do that. She's the pastor, she's the teacher. I'll just be along for the administrative piece, because that's what I'm good at. That's my lane. That's where I stay. So 3 classes later, 8 weeks, 24 weeks total, this had been birthed. Woman of the word, between the prayer and the process is the promise of God. We spoke about Ruth and Naomi. We spoke about Rachel and Leah. Spoke about the book of Ruth. Really should be Ruth and Naomi, because Naomi was just as powerful in those 4 chapters. And we dug in deep. Many of you have had the privilege, I say it was a privilege because we learned. We taught each other, we walked with each other. Though we were the facilitators, we learned from you as well too. And so I called Grace with an SOS and said, I think I have to speak on Rahab. Well, all the way from California, she laughed because she said that the Lord revealed to her that Rahab would be our next book or our next chapter. So, Mr. Kassar, we have no more excuses. We're going to get there and make it work. So I began to cry because I knew she'd be the perfect one. So we began to dig in deep. But again, I really felt that the Lord was like, this is an assignment I'm going to have you walk with just you and I. So, of course, our schedules didn't match all week long. So I did. I dug into Rahab, and I got to know this beautiful woman of God who people underestimated. As I began to learn about Rahab, as I began to interact with Rahab, as I began to dig deep into my word, her faith began to restore some of my faith. What she walked through began to bring up some things that the Lord had already walked me out of. It began to remind me of some things, some labels that were on my past. And I went and had coffee with Rahab. I went and I spoke with Rahab and I said, teach me. Lord, use Rahab to teach me. So he did. The only text that I got from Grace was, you got this. Last time you spoke, it was on Joshua 1. Rahab is in Joshua 2. God's not going to take you to a place. He's not going to call you to a place and not equip you. Krystal-Joy, you've got this. So if you turn to your Bibles with me really quickly, we're going to dive into Joshua 2. Then Joshua, the son of Nun, secretly sent 2 spies from Shittim. Go, look over the land, he said, especially Jericho. We're going to come back to that. So they went and entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. The king of Jericho was told, look, some of the Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent this message to Rahab. Bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, because they have come to spy out the whole land. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. She said, "Yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they had come from." So at dusk, when it was time to close the city gates, they left. I don't know which way they went. Go after them quickly. You may catch up with them." But she had taken them to the roof and hidden them under the stalks of flax she had laid out on the rooftop. So the men set out in pursuit of the spies on the road that leads to the fords of Jordan, and as soon as the pursuers had gone out, the gate was shut. Before the spies laid down, verse 8, for the night, she went on the rooftop and said to them, "I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that a great fear of you has fallen over us, so that all of who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We have heard of how the Lord dried up the waters of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did in Sihon and Og, and the 2 kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard of it, our hearts melted in fear, and everyone's courage failed. Because of you, for the Lord your God is God, in heaven and above, and all the earth below." We're going to keep going, but I'll stop there because I want to acknowledge that I believe in that very moment, Rahab gave her heart to the Lord. You see, I have a couple of points for you that I will walk us through. Rahab believed in God. As we're going through the heroes of faith, we know that they walked with God, they talked with God, but Rahab believed in God. Even Sarah laughed with God, but Rahab believed in God. My first point is that Rahab's faith was full of knowledge. Walk with me when I read this to you. Joshua 2, 9-11, we just talked about it. 9 through 11. Before the spies had laid down for the night, she went up to the roof. Let me read it again. And said to them, "I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all of you who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We have heard," say heard, "we have heard of the Lord who dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did in Sihon and Og and the 2 kings of the Amorites east of Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard," say heard, say it again, say heard, "when we heard of it, our hearts melted in fear." Rahab's faith was the very definition of Romans 10:17. So faith comes by hearing. That is hearing the good news of Christ. It's the very definition of 2 Corinthians 5:7. We walk by faith and not by sight. Rahab's faith started to get stirred because of what she heard. I heard about what happened back in Egypt. I heard about how the Lord dried up the Red Sea. I didn't see it. The Israelites did, and some of them still didn't believe. I heard. Why? Because no little girl grows up to say, "I want to be a prostitute." So I guarantee that Rahab walked through quite a bit, and she knew that her faith needed to continue to carry her through. So I heard, it's time, I heard of God's faithfulness. I heard of his mercies over your people. I heard of the food that was coming out day by day. I heard of his provision for you. Surely your God is God. Rahab held on to God's mercies and placed her faith in him, although she herself had not seen these miracles. Second point, Rahab's faith was full of courage. Say courage. Thank you, girl. That's my Lily right there. Rahab's faith was full of courage. Do you know how much courage it took to have those spies in your house and lie to the king? But she was desperate for a move of God. Are we desperate enough for a move of God that we are going to start just getting past our circumstances, going through our circumstances? Rahab said, "Not today, Satan. I promise you, those spies are coming here. And I don't care what anybody else in the land of the city of Jericho is going to say about me, because I heard about their God. So I know that my testimony, I know that my destiny is on the other side. So it's time." Her faith was full of courage. She had courage to ask for what she wanted in faith in God, to believe that she would receive it. Sometimes we go to the throne of grace with, "Dear Lord, please bless me." And if that's all you have, then you give it to him. But if there's more, "Dear Lord, dear Lord, God, I need you. I need more than you just to bless me. I need more than just, I need you, Lord." So that's what Rahab did. She had nothing to lose and knew that her faith would continue to carry her through. Sometimes our faith in the Lord is all we have. Do you know that Rahab's house was built into the city gate? It was in the city wall. We're going to get into that in just a little bit more, but her courage also kept her going in the midst of everything that was happening in her life. Back in Joshua 2, verse 12. "Now then," Rahab's talking to the spies, "please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father and my mother and my brothers and my sisters and all who belong to them, that they will be saved from death." I don't care what her title was. She loved her family. We don't know all about her family, so we don't know if they loved her back. But we know that when it came to it, who did she storm the gates of hell for? My mother and my father, my brothers and my sisters, and all that belong to them. Our lives for your lives. The men assured her, "If you don't tell what we are doing," verse 14, "we will treat you kindly and faithfully when the Lord gives us the land." This was a done deal. When the Lord gives us the land, not if. This was a done deal. God just had some other things he had to tie up before that happened. There's done deals already in your lives that are happening. Stand firm on those done deals. It's a done deal. Yes and amen. Period. Point number 3. I know I'm racing through, but it's because it's getting good. Rahab's faith was full of action. This is where we're going to stay for just a little bit. Because remember what I said at the beginning. We've been talking about faith. We've been preaching about faith. We've been singing about faith. So it's time for that faith in action to take place. There was somebody else's faith that was full of action. We'll get back to Rahab in just a second. In Joshua 2, verse 1, I love how the Lord opens up chapters of these books. Then Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent 2 spies from Shittim. Let's deal with that first sentence. Secretly sent 2 spies. So, as I dug a little bit deeper, got into Joshua 2, I said, well, Lord, why would Joshua send 2 spies this time instead of 12 spies like last time? Because he had already gone 40 years ago. So there were already things that the Lord had walked him through, talked him through. He didn't have time to navigate these reports of multiple spies. Also, he secretly sent these spies. Sometimes when God gives you an assignment, you don't need to tell everybody in the world. And I say this, what I'm about to say, my friends that have blessed me up there will laugh at me. It doesn't need to be on every Twitter platform. It doesn't need to be on every social media platform. It doesn't need to be in every prayer meeting that you go to. It doesn't need to be on every Facebook, Instagram. Girl, come here. Let me tell you. Joshua secretly sent 2 spies. Because this time around, he didn't have time. He knew his assignment. He knew what he needed to do. He had faith that when he sent these spies, that God would protect them, that God would send a Rahab. He didn't know that, but he knew that he would protect them. It was time for them to go. Second sentence in Joshua 2:1. Go look over the land, he said, especially in Jericho. I love that especially Jericho is in quotes. I asked the Lord why. Krystal-Joy, sometimes when I have an assignment for you, there are multiple assignments that are coming after that. But I need to give you confidence to conquer this assignment first. Go to Jericho. But I didn't ask for the but. Go to Jericho. Sometimes we get so nervous in wanting to know the who, the what, the where, the when, the how, the what's going to happen, the who's going to be there, the am I going to be okay. I'm speaking to myself. On Monday, I said, no. Call Pastor Choi again. You're ready. Do this assignment first. Conquer Jericho first. You don't need to worry about everything else after Jericho. I've got it. That's why when David looked at Goliath, he knew the confidence because of the bear and the lion. What is your Jericho? Have you already passed your Jericho? Have you already run through your Jericho and the Lord wants your assignment here? Joshua's faith was laser focused. Remember, he only needed the faith report of 2 spies instead of the fear report of 10. Sometimes there are people in your life that you want to start to talk to you about certain things because you're talking to them. This is where we need to talk. We don't necessarily always need to talk here. If we focus and have laser focus here, he's going to be very intentional with who he brings into your assignment. Did you ever wonder why it was so easy? It took a week. They were in 40 years, a week? Joshua's faith was laser focused. So was Rahab's. I'm going to go to the roof. I need to talk to these spies. I'm going to be very intentional. Please show kindness to my friends, my family, all that belong to them, my mother, my father. They agreed. And then they gave instructions. Rahab knew she had to take action and that her faith had to move. We are in a place right now, not only at 16819 New Hampshire Avenue, and if this is your first time here, that's the address of this wonderful building. But the ministry that comes out of here, there are things that are going on not only here, but in our lives. School starts on Monday. There are teachers we need to be praying for. Laser focused. When you went to go do, parents, if you went to your open houses today, did you pray for your teachers as you walked through the halls? Did you notice when your children may have ran away from you? I know I did. They were with their little friends. My little 9-year-old dapped up this boy, Nate, and I was like, well, he is just too cool. What are you doing? But I listened to who he said. Hey, so-and-so. Oh, I need to start praying for so-and-so and his family, because that's who my son's playing with. Laser-focused faith. As her faith was laser-focused, she knew exactly what to ask for. Specific is terrific, people. When you go to the throne of grace, be specific when you talk to your Father. Rahab's faith was full of compassion and peace. Point number 4. Her faith was full of compassion towards the strangers, that the spies that she had hid in her house. Hebrews 11:13 says, by faith the prostitute Rahab did not perish along with those who were disobedient. You don't think that the label of her profession caused her to be a bit disobedient sometimes? But she did not perish. After she had welcomed the spies in peace. She welcomed them in peace because she already had peace in her heart that she knew what was going to happen. Remember, she had heard what was going to happen. She also had faith and peace. It was full of faith. Her faith was full of compassion towards her family. The spies told her what to do. Go and get them. Put this red cord outside of the window that we're going to come out of. Once we come back and take the land, because it's going to happen, we will save your family, all that's there. So Rahab had to go. Again, more action. I have to go get them because they may not all be in my house. As I was studying this, I remembered 2 weeks ago when Pastor Mika said, Joshua is on the gates and all of the military are behind him and they're walking. Day 1, they're walking. Day 2. By day 3, they probably went home, and as Pastor Mika said, their wives were like, well, what did you do? We walked. As wives do, as I do with my husband. Well, what'd you talk about? How was your day? I don't know. We walked. I imagine on the other side, as Rahab's house was built into the city gates, what did she do on day 3? You're just walking? But God, I know that you're going to take this land. Joshua, remember, I heard about what God had done. That means I know that you are a military savant. I know that you can just come and wipe this out. What are you doing? Rahab didn't question that. Remember, she already gave her heart to the Lord. So she was praying. Her faith probably needed to be so strong that it was not just there for her and her circumstances, but for those of her family as well. Because I guarantee you, her family, what are they doing? They're just walking? They're not even talking at this point, and everyone's making fun of them. Rahab, we're out. Don't leave, don't leave. I know this God. I've heard of this God. Don't leave, don't leave. I've heard of this God. Stay, pray with me. Stay. They're just talking. They're just walking. They're not saying a word. And now they're making fun of them. We're out. Remember, your faith is not always just for you and your circumstances. It's for those that come behind you. You got to stand strong. She had to stand strong for her family. She had to exhibit compassion for these strangers that were spies, but she also had to exhibit compassion for her family that was there. Where does the Lord want your faith to be activated today? Where does the Lord want your faith to put in the work? Not only is faith the currency of heaven, but it's a muscle. It's a muscle that has to be worked. It's been working for the last 10 weeks, guys. It's been working for the last 10 years of our lives. It's been working for decades, generations. It's time to put in the work. Remember at the beginning, I said that there were some labels that were placed on Rahab. What labels or titles, good or bad, have been placed on you or that you have placed on yourself that may be holding you back? Abraham was a herdsman. David was a shepherd. Nehemiah was a cupbearer. Isaiah was a prophet. Peter was a fisherman. Herod was a king. Esther was a queen. Matthew was a tax collector. Joseph was a carpenter. Paul was a tent maker. Rahab was a prostitute. Rahab had a label placed on her because of her profession. However, Rahab the prostitute was one of the underestimated underdogs in God's mighty plan. There wasn't enough claps for that, folks. Let me read that again. Rahab was a prostitute. She was one of the underestimated underdogs in God's mighty plan. Understand, she is one of only two women in the Hall of Fame, Hall of Faith, Hebrews 11. That was so impressed in my heart. Why? Sarah laughed. Rahab believed. Remember this about labels. Everything that people call you, you don't necessarily have to answer to. God is the only one who will call you and equip you every single time. In James 2:5, it says, in the same way, was not Rahab the prostitute considered righteous for what she did? So Rahab was no longer the prostitute. Rahab was now the righteous woman of God. And that is why she was chosen as the great, 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 and so on, great grandmother of Jesus Christ. only 4 women were allowed to be those great greats. I always talk about my aunties and my mom, my strong, beautiful, single mother, who I would not be here without her prayers. Think about the lineage of Jesus Christ. He had a prostitute in his past. God does not care what you were, what you did, where you're going. He only cares about his mighty plan. He will use you. He will call you. He will equip you. He will give you strength in the time of need. He will wipe your tears in the shower. He will walk with you when you're walking your children to school. He will be with you every single time. 4 weeks ago, Pastor Mika called out the Sarahs. You better believe we're calling out the Rahab'S today. There are some things that have been placed on the women in this building that we're going to let go today. When I was 15 years old, I was very flirtatious. I had a single Trinidadian mom, so I knew my line. Let's not be crazy. I knew my line. Don't cross that one. Oh, but I played with that line. I flirted with that line. I got real close to that line. Sometimes it was at school, sometimes it was at home, sometimes it was in this very church. And the reality is that I had a crush on a young little man. And that young little man and I, you see him, you see me, it was just way too much. And his mother, now I understand now, being a mom, why she felt the way she felt, but she looked at me in our high school room and said, "Why are you the vomit that my son continues to come back to?" And that label did things in me that I shouldn't be standing here today. My mom blessed that woman. My mom prayed for that woman. That label does not belong to me. I'm nobody's vomit. I'm a child of God. I'm the apple of his eye. I'm a princess of the Most High King. You have labels that people have put on you, or that based on your circumstances you have placed on yourself. Don't walk out those doors carrying those labels. Please, please, please understand that Rahab's future did not end with the fallen walls of Jericho. It was just the beginning. Rahab was no longer viewed as an unclean prostitute, but one who was worthy by the grace to be a part of the lineage of our Jesus Christ. I love that the bookends of Rahab the prostitute go from Old Testament to New Testament. When we get to heaven and I actually have that cup of coffee with Rahab, I can't go looking for Rahab the prostitute. She's not there. Rahab, the righteous woman of God, is who I will be having coffee with.
Thank you for joining us for this message. I want to pray the blessing of the Lord over you and your household. We're a home with many generations and many nations. So wherever you're from, you're welcome to Living Word. We hope to see you very soon.
Thank you for joining us for this week's message. We hope that you heard something that will make a difference in your life. If you're part of the Living Word family and wish to give in support of this ministry, visit us online at LWICC.org and click on the tab that says Give. You may also give through our Living Word Church app, or you can text LWGIVE and the dollar amount to 855-799-1777. For more information about Living Word International, service times, directions, and how to sow into the ministry, visit us online at lwicc.org. Again, that's lwicc.org. Thank you again for visiting us, and have a blessed week.